I was just like immediately distrustful. It's like, you Cobra Kai for you. What is going on here? Y'all, there's a new Southern drama based on the best-selling novel. I feel faint. It's where the Crawdads Sing.
In town, they tell the story of the marsh girl, the one who grew up alone in the wild. But they never really knew me.
This is based on the best-selling novel by Delia Owens. If you have been in an airport, you may have picked it up to read on the plane. It's apparently a very, very quick read. This was also a Reese Witherspoon book club pick, and she is a producer on it. So it comes with a great deal of expectation. People love this book. My hairdresser feels extremely passionately, intensely about this book and was like, you've got to read it. Oh my God, there's going to be a movie. You've got to see the movie. And so we're seeing the movie, and I don't know that it all translates. I can't wait to hear from you guys who love this book to let me know if it does indeed work, because like it feels extremely rushed to me. But Daisy Edgar-Jones plays Kaya. She is a young woman living by herself in a house in the swamps of North Carolina, the marsh. I'm going to get to that. She's the marsh girl, or that marsh girl. When people in town are feeling particularly derisive toward her, she's that marsh girl. And the story is basically a back and forth flashback structure between this body being found in the marsh of this young man with whom she had been romantically involved, and then going back to her youth and the horrible abuses that she suffered at the hands of her alcoholic father, played by Garret Dillahunt. And so this is back and forth between what's happening with her trial, when she's accused of this guy's murder, and then what happened in the years leading up to that like helped form her. And essentially she was just feral and having to fend for herself in this little shack on the water. Her mother leaves because her father is so abusive. One by one, all her siblings leave. And eventually it's just her there to fend for herself in the middle of nowhere. She is, however, brilliant and really, really knowledgeable about every imaginable shell and bird and thing in nature. And this tracks the very genuine interest of a kid she has known since her earliest days, Tate, played by Taylor John Smith. And then eventually it attracts the interest of this total asshole bully in town, played by Harris Dickinson. And it's kind of a mystery, like who killed Harris Dickinson's character, whose name is Chase Andrews, who killed him. David Strathairn is like this impossibly kind and altruistic retired attorney, sort of like an Atticus Finch type figure who believes in her goodness, but like there's nothing at all to him. There are some lovely performances in this, but it is never interesting as a courtroom drama. It's all the cliches of any kind of courtroom drama where like people gasp in shock. It's very, very perfunctory.
Isn't it true that?
Wouldn't you say? Can you read this right here? The childhood stuff is much more effective. It's very atmospheric with the moss and the cicadas. And Daisy Edgar-Jones is very good at portraying kind of like a raw intensity, but also a shyness and also like a circumspect nature where you can see that like she's had to grow up so fast on her own that she's instantly mistrustful of people. And she registers her apprehension in very subtle ways. This made me laugh out loud toward the ending, and I don't think that was the intention. It rushes the ending. Again, I've not read the book. I understand this is very true to the book. Maybe it plays out more effectively in the book. Maybe more time transpires to let that transition take place. But all of a sudden, like something changes, and we laughed and said, "Boo."
I laughed a few times during this movie. Mostly, though, I was super bored because this is such an earnest and inert and humorless movie. Yeah. The characters are essentially one thing, and they're always one thing. So like, Kaya is resourceful and distrustful, except when she trusts people, which is a couple times. David Strathairn, super nice, super helpful. Tate, except for like one moment of like kind of blowing it, super supportive, super sweet. Harris Dickinson, bad news, you can tell from the get-go. The dad, super drunk and abusive. The black people that run the store on the marsh, super nice and supportive. The fact that they are dealing with the 1950s and 60s is touched upon in the briefest way in this movie. They're mainly just there to sort of empathize with the girl. I didn't care about the murder mystery because it just falls apart and it takes forever to get there. And once they finally explain, it's like, oh well, bleh. So many kind of like Southern cliches about things and the marsh and the good.
It's mystical in the marsh. Yes.
Yeah, I do want to give props to Jojo Regina, who plays Kaya as a child. Really good, and has to like do a lot of difficult stuff. And yeah, I think that none of this movie is the actor's fault. They all showed up and they're all trying to like make something of this. I do think Taylor John Smith is such an Aryan glass of milk that he should only play villains because he's so blonde and so like
blue-eyed and tall and handsome.
I was just like immediately distrustful. It's like, you Cobra Kai for you. What is going on here? Yeah, I don't know. This movie never goes anywhere, and it is just it is high on its own fake lyricism, and it just got on my nerves.
So I suspect though that probably a lot of this plays out better on the page. Probably a lot of it is like very interior and very lyrical, atmospheric. Yeah, and I'm sure that as you're reading it, it's probably really vivid and you get sucked in, but probably because it is so beloved, right? So Olivia Newman directs this, and Lucy Alibar wrote the screenplay based on Delia Omen's novel, and
she wrote Beasts of the Southern Wild.
There you go. Which this is similar in terms of like you have this young feral girl having to be wise beyond her years and fend for herself in the swamps or the marsh, whatever you want to call it. I suspect, though, that it probably felt like they needed to include so much of this book to please this incredibly loyal and fervent fan base that it all feels rushed and superficial and totally lacking in the emotional heft that the page probably delivers. And so, like, at the end, I was laughing and booing, and it's supposed to be this major twist. And I have so many better endings in my head that I was thinking about in the car on the way home. Like, nah, it should have been this person doing that instead. All of my endings are much better.
No, you and I were like swapping theories. Felt like, well, if it had been this or this or this, that would have been more interesting. Yeah,
it's so ridiculous the way it actually plays out, and it's not nearly as profound as we're supposed to believe it is.
No. I kept waiting for it to like go to the next level, and it just stays at the surface doggedly the whole time. And I just didn't care about any of it.
Right. For a movie about a young woman who's supposed to be just wild, who lives by her own rules, it's a very tepid and very safe and restrained movie.
But also like, a brilliant naturalist, autodidact, like that's a lot for one character to be. And you can get there, but they don't set it up enough, because you're right. They're just like plot. This thing has to happen. That thing has to happen, I guess, because it was in the book,
Yeah. Anyway, so I am saying 5. I like some stuff about it, some performances, some of the mood of it, but it's just, it never moved me.
Yeah, I'm 4.5. I was more irritated with it than anything else. Although, like I said, the actors are giving it their best shot, and it's hard not to like Spanish moss at sunset. Like, you can't not make that look pretty great. So